Hi everyone, welcome back to another tutorial. Today we are going back to the absolute basics, something that every JavaScript and React developer must understand. Now, don't forget that at the start of this video, I explained that React is basically JavaScript. And so we're just going to look at something that is absolutely basic, something that I feel that every JavaScript and by extension React developer must understand. And it is important that we understand this because we're going to be using it in our project. The next component we're going to be building, which is the contactors components, we need to understand these basics and it's variables and data types. So we must understand what variables are and we must understand what data types are available in JavaScript. And also, we'll look at variables, we'll look at objects, we'll look at arrays, then we'll look at the dot map method, then we'll take it up from there. But today, we will be looking at variables and data types. So, what is a variable? A variable, just like I have showing on the screen, a variable is like a container that holds information or a value that a user can use later in his or her code. Now, so think of variable like a container, a bucket that stores water, or a plate, a bowl that stores something, maybe gari or milk. So think of variables like a container that holds an information. For example, you have const nickname is equal to ay. Now, so the way you declare variable in JavaScript is by using the const, right? Or should I say const method? Now, I might be wrong. By saying const, then the name of the variable, then the value or the information that it stores. Now, let me show you that in our code. Now, excuse me, inside my features component, I could just say const nickname, nickname. So the nickname will be the name of the variable, and I'm just going to store my name. Okay, build with steez. Now, don't forget that in the explanation, we said that if a variable holds an information or a value that can be used later in your code. Now, in this my components, I have a variable nickname that holds build with steez. Now, I can use this nickname, this variable in my code. I can say, instead of having these features here, the way you use the variable, I can just say curly braces and put the variable here. That's how you use a variable. So this is how you declare a variable, right? The const, right? The name of the variable and the value or the information, the data that the variable holds. And this is how you call the variable in between curly braces and then the name of the variable. Now, if we look at it, can you see? Build with this. So this is not just a text I'm writing in between tag. It is a variable that I called and then I'm using in my code. So that's how to call a variable and use it in your code. So here we have created a variable called nickname and we store the value ay inside it, just like we just did now. We store the value build with steez inside it. So visual analogy, think of a variable like a labeled box, just like we have here, box nickname. Then inside the box nickname we have ay. So why should I use variable? to store information, just like we store build with stays inside nickname, right? Excuse me. To reuse in your data without repeating it. So let's go back to our code. What does that mean? So it means that now there are instances where I have like repeated information at different, part of my site. For example, I could have, you know, learn more. For example, this learn more that is here, learn more is here, learn more is here, and also learn more is here. I mean, this is just stressful. I could just, write a variable and say learn more and store learn more here, right? And then I'll just copy the name, and instead of having three learn mores here, just put it in between curly braces and say learn more. Now, if we view it, you should have the same thing, learn more. And you see nothing changed. So that's how to use a variable. That's one of the use cases of variables. So variables are very important in our project. So why must I use variables? To hold information, to reuse data without repeating it, to make your code more readable and flexible, just like we just did. Instead of having learn more three times, right? It's stressful. We just have one learn more stored inside the variable, and we call the variable when we excuse me, when we need it. Now, so let's quickly look at data types. Data types. Now, what are data types? It says a data type tells us what kind of data a variable holds. Now, every variable in JavaScript has a type. That means that every variable has like a data type, a type of variable. What type of variable is this, or what type of variable do I need or do I want to use? And knowing the type helps us use its property. Now, so common data types in JavaScript. First, we have string. A string is a text wrapped in between quotes. For example, const name is AY. So any text that is wrapped in between quotes is a string, just like we have in our code here. So this is a string, right? If I do this, if I remove the string, I'll have an error because JavaScript doesn't know what type this is, right? So I must always put my text in between quotes and it becomes a string. Now it could be single quotes like this, it could be double quotes, same thing. Just like in this place I use double quotes, in this place I use single quotes. So this is an example of a string. Now the data type that the variable is holding tells us the type of the variable. For example, this variable nickname is holding a string. That automatically makes this variable a string. Are you following? So the type of this variable is a string. The type of this variable is also a string. I hope that is clear. So the second type variable type is number. A number is just a number. Const age is 25, right? So in my code, I could come and say const age. Now you can name your variable anything. I mean, you can use, you know, it can start with capital letter, it can start with small letter, but your variable name must not have space in between. It will not work. Now you can use hyphen to space, your variable name. I could say first underscore, underscore name. Or I could say first. Okay, you don't use an hyphen. Hyphen will not work. This is wrong. Just use underscore, not hyphen. First underscore name. I could say Ayomide, right? I could also say capital letter, first underscore name. But a variable name must not start with number. It must not. It must not start with number. It must always start with a letter. Then maybe it can have number after, right? The underscore. Now there are also some and what's it called now? Reserved name. For example, your variable name cannot be delete. It can't be delete because delete is a reserved name. Can you see that he now look at it? Delete is not allowed as a variable. Look at it. Delete is not allowed as a variable declaration name. Delete cannot be called as an identifier in strict mode. So delete is a reserved name. I think another name that is reserved is new. See, new. Can you see? New is also a reserved name. So assignments, go and find out all the reserved name in JavaScript. What name you can't use as your variable name in JavaScript. So excuse me, your variable name can start with capital letter, your variables can start with small letter, and then if you want space, just use underscore. You cannot use hyphen, and your variable name cannot start with number. It could end with number, but it cannot start with number. So another variable type we have is the number. So I could say age is 25 or 35. And some of you here will have been running around and around now to think that that is my age. But that's your problem. Yeah, so I could call it here. I say age, right? So if I view it in a browser, I should have this build with is 35. So that is how you can use that. So the next, so we've looked at string, we've looked at number. So the next data type will be, let's see, boolean. A boolean is basically true or false value. For example, const student or a student is true. So a boolean is two values. Boolean is either true or false. False. So let's look at it. So I could say const is female, false. In other words, am I a female? False, right? So let's see. Can I render a boolean to the screen? Let's see. Can I? What do you think? Actually, no. You cannot render a boolean to the screen, but boolean also have its use cases and they are very important. I mean, they are extremely important in, you know, React. So let me give you one use case. Now, I could say I could use a boolean to render a particular GSX template conditionally. Now, what do I mean? Don't worry, you might not understand this, but I could say, now, let me create another variable. Let's say greet. Let's say welcome or greet female. Welcome ma. I'll create another one and say greet male. And say welcome sir. Right, so then I'll have a third variable and say is female, false. Now, what I want to do is if the user is female, right, greet welcome ma. If the user is a male, greet welcome sir, right? So I could say if his female is false, that means that that user is a male, do welcome sir. If his female is true, then I greet welcome ma. Clear? But let's make it false first. So I could render a GSX conditionally based on whether the user is a female or male. So I could say inside curly braces, I could say is female is true. Now this question mark means is true, right? I'll say just put a span there and say greet female, greet female, and then if it is false, exclamation mark means it is false. So look at what I'm doing. If his female is true, right? Render this GSX. If it is false, render this, right? Coming. I have an error here. Sorry, coming. All right, so I figured out where my error is. So it's not exclamation mark, it's colon. Where is it? Colon means if it is not true. So this is it. If his female is true, right? Greets greets female, right? And if his female is false, right? This colon means else. Else means if it is true or false. So try and understand this. If his female is true, right? That means the user is a female, greet female, right? If his female is false, right? That means the user is a male, greet male. So let's look at it in our browser. Let's see what happens. Can you see? Welcome, sir. Why? Because his female is currently what? False. Now, if I change it to true, can you see? Welcome, ma. So that's how you can use a boolean in your project. So booleans are very, very, very important. Right, so the next data type we'll be looking at is array. Array is basically a list of value. For example, const hobbies is coding, design, music. And so the way you declare an array in your, we're going to look at array in the next video. Your code is by saying hobbies, and then an array is usually declared, with the, what's it called now? Brackets. And then in between the brackets, you have your value. So it's a list of values, a collection of items. Coding, design, music. So this is basically an array. Then the type of this, what's it called now? This variable is also an array. Now, can you render an array on the screen? No, you can't. You can't just render an array on the screen like this. No, you can't. It won't work. As a matter of fact, you are going to have an error. Oh, coding, design, music. Oh, it actually did work. It worked. Wow. Okay, I didn't know that before. That is new. Coding, design, music. It worked. All right. So the last type of data type will be objects. Now, notice if I'm saying array and objects. Let me just copy this. Yeah, I see. So this is an array, square brackets. Object is curly braces. And the difference between object and array is that object has key value pair, like name, Ayo, age, 25, right? I could say hobby, music. It has to be a string. Hobbies, music. In fact, I could say hobbies and then copy this entire array and put here, right? I could say hobbies, that is If you view this now, you say it will be name Ayo, age 25, then hobbies will be this array here. So it will be coding, design, and music. Now let's one funny way, I mean important way, not funny, important way to view your variable, particularly if it cannot be rendered on the screen, just like we, you know, saw for boolean, is to console.log it. You can view that variable in the console. I could say console.log is female. Now, the console runs in the browser. Just do Ctrl Shift I and then click on console here. Can you see? Let me just delete all this and let me do this again. Can you see? True. True. Why? Because the value of our is female is true. If I say false, not false now, false, you see that the value is now false. Now, let me console.log my person. Can you see now? You have name, Ayo, age, 25. Then let me open it up. Hobbies. Can you see hobbies? Coding, design, music. Let me console.log my hobbies. Right? So you see coding, design, music. It's like you have here. Coding, design, and music. So I hope you learned one or two. So the last part says the data type tells us what kind of variable it holds. In JavaScript, every variable has a type, and that type is the same as the type of the data stored inside it. For example, if a variable stores text, the type is string. If it stores number, the type is number. If it stores an array, the type is array. If it stores an object, the type is object. And so on. So I hope you learned one or two. So in our next video, we'll be taking a deep dive into arrays and objects as they will come in handy in our React project. So hope you learned one or two. Let me know in the comment section. Do also like this video and subscribe to our channel so that we can, post more.